Stark might have died in Avengers Endgame, but he didn't die in fans' minds. And wait till you hear who's bound to replace him in the Iron Man 4. Oh, and wait till you hear what Joe Rogan had to say about RDJ returning to the MCU. So don't swipe or click away, because here's why Iron Man 4 is about to change everything. Let's face it, losing Robert Downey Jr. in the last Avengers movie only made us hate MCU. He didn't have to die, there were a ton of other options to keep him alive, but they didn't go with any of them. And we don't think Marvel liked this either. But since RDJ has been saying for quite some time now that playing Iron Man, aka Tony Stark, was a little boring, since he was doing it since 2008. But then again, he was one of the major reasons the movie franchises he was a part of scored a jaw-dropping $23 billion. Now, do you see why we said that MCU was sad to see him go? But if you look online, you'll see a bunch of angry fans ready to fight to the death for them to bring Iron Man back. But will it actually happen? During the Joe Rogan podcast, Robert Downey Jr. got asked this very same question, that is the door to Iron Man totally closed? Because I don't believe it is. This is the question that Joe asked Robert during the long interview. The host pointed out that since the Avengers and the entire time can time travel, then everything is possible. Rogan even said that he would be okay if Marvel did a few Avengers movies without him, while he was doing a couple more Dr. Dolittle movies, and then for an epic comeback. When they need a genius on the Avengers team, they learn to fire up the Wayback Machine and get his one of the coolest comebacks in the history of cinema. RDJ just laughed it off and shrugged his shoulder, indicating that he wanted to branch out and try new things. And we can't really blame him, he was sort of married to that character since 2008, and enough is just enough. Rogan and RDJ even touched on this phenomenon in our society where people are never encouraged to take a break, they're never commended for doing a good job at something, the only thing that people want is more and more and more of something. This is why RDJ was feeling like he was trapped inside a pressure tank. All of that being said, we think that the scenarios on how to bring him back or film a fourth Iron Man movie without him are endless. Since Tony Stark was part of almost every movie in the MCU, forming a particular bond with the Spider-Man franchise, with these newest movies, we think that they can introduce the new Iron Man as a secondary character. Since most of the concept trailers on YouTube include Catherine Langford in the role of Morgan Stark, taking on her daddy's mantle as Iron Man, most of these trailers included the deleted scene from Avengers Endgame where Tony and Morgan talk in the imaginary realm created by the Soul Stone just before Tony dies. It seems to us like the fans have spoken, and the one they want is Morgan Stark to take on the role of her father. And if MCU thinks this will be a huge risk for the studio, then they can do what we suggested a minute ago. Instead of giving Catherine Langford her own movie, they can include her into one of the upcoming Spider-Man movies. If the fans like her, like they do in those fake trailers on YouTube, then they can go ahead and make the movie. The risk is minimized and the fans go home happy, knowing that there will be more Iron Man in the future. But CBR told a different story. Before we talk about CBR and why they think Iron Man 4 is a past wish, don't forget to smash that like button, it keeps the almighty YouTube algorithm happy, and you keep getting these videos for free. First of all, we should tell you that MCU said they wanted to end Tony's story on the show because this would give the character meaning. It also allowed the franchise to grow and expand beyond Iron Man, and this is actually the case when you see that RDJ's character, Tony, was actually better in movies that involved other superheroes like Captain America Winter Soldier, where the two teams nearly killed themselves. Now, here's what Marcus said about a possible Iron Man 4. The end is what cements the thing to actually sew it together and bring it to a crescendo. And yeah, take people off the board, finish their arcs. If Tony made it out the other side, the Iron Man 4 was waiting there, you'd be like, one too many. And this wasn't the only reason for their decision. We can't forget the fact that Iron Man 4 was sacrificed because MCU wanted to partake in some riskier adventures. For example, growing the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise was something they wanted to do, and returning to another Iron Man movie would just be repetitive. They have a lot of different characters they could wind up with killer movies, and 2021 is gonna be proof of that. They gave Black Widow and Shang-Chi their own movies, so they definitely have some other plan. Taking RDJ and other characters off the table is actually their plan moving forward, but they'll replace them with new ones as time goes by. And the third and probably the most important reason that the MCU had for moving away from Iron Man 4, as CBR states, is that they prioritized the character in other movies instead of giving him solo movies that would promote his franchise. And we have to say, this was kind of smart of Marvel. They made an ultra-successful character that put the MCU on the map, and they used this fame to promote other superheroes. The first thing that comes to mind is Captain America and their Civil War, and obviously, the most recent example includes Spider-Man Homecoming, where RDJ served as Peter Parker's mentor in the MCU. Now, we shouldn't mix Tony Stark's involvement in other movies with Nick Fury's involvement in those movies. Yes, Samuel L. Jackson was a vital part of the success of the MCU, but even he was connected to other characters and movies through the MCU. Black Panther and Doctor Strange followed a similar path. Now, we get what they're saying, but all of this talk about no Iron Man never excluded the possibility of an Iron Woman. They might never bring Tony Stark back because that would just weaken the character's impact on the MCU, but they never said that his daughter couldn't take over. Now did they? Oh, and in addition to that, Joe Rogan, during that same interview with Robert Downey Jr., has stated that most of the guys who say that they're never coming back make a comeback. So, in a way, it would be cheesy for RDJ to take on the role of Iron Man again. It would be cheesy to see him say, "I've had enough of this," and then a few years later be like, "Yeah, listen, I decided to come back, guys." To be honest, we understand where they're coming from. This is why the possibility of Catherine Langford starring in her own movie is actually pretty big. Now, there are a lot of conflicting opinions on this topic, but we think they're going to put off filming Iron Man 4 for a while. And then, after a few years, they're gonna resume filming and is gonna be with Catherine Langford in the leading role. It'll definitely be nice to see a girl take on the mantle from this iconic superhero, and this wouldn't be too much of a stretch since Pepper Potts already showed us just how independent she can be in the previous movie. On a related note, would you like to see Iron Man 4 revolve around Morgan Stark or Tony Stark? You can tell us in the comment section below. If you'd like to see more videos like these, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of them. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.